So folks, we have some more Battlegrounds cards to take a look at, and alongside the Undead cards revealed yesterday, today we got to look at a bunch of dual-type minions coming to Battlegrounds. So things that are mechs and demons, or beasts and demons, or whatever other magical combinations you'd like to see. And the way these are going to work is that if the lobby has either of the type, so if it's either mech or demon, you can still get, say, Mecha Jiraxis here in your lobby. And of course, if it has both, it'll also show up as well. Now, as always, fair warning, I'm not playing a ton of Battlegrounds right now. This is going to be part review, but part also just pointing at nice new things and saying that looks cool. So don't expect a ton of super in-depth analysis here. I'll do my best, but mostly here just giving you a preview of the stuff we're going to see very soon in Battlegrounds. So kicking it off with the first dual class, it is indeed Mecha Jiraxis, a new tier 6 unit. He's a 315 mech and demon, and Battlecry add a random Mecha Demon to your hand. And we've got 3 Mecha Demons in the pool here for Mecha Jiraxis. I don't think these are going to have any future dual types or anything. This is a fixed pool, it sounds like, for Jiraxis. You can get Baltharak, which is a 10-1. It's tier 1, but you know, it's just a token in hand. He's also a mech demon, reborn, and can magnetize to mechs and demons. So that's pretty insane, getting reborn and some big old attack bonus there when you magnetize this. So it's really just a giant buff to perhaps even your Mecha Jiraxis right away if you want, making Mecha Jiraxis a 13-16 with reborn, for instance. You've also got Magtheridon Prime. That one's got Taunt, if you're looking for Taunt, and it's 110. I know that's cut off there a little bit, but I believe that's a 110 in this case. So same story, magnetized. And then finally, the Rusted Reggie. I love Reggie. That sounds like my name. He's a 5-5 with Wind Fury. So 3 different buff options here, each providing, you know, some potential utility and upside. Each of these could be, you know, uniquely useful in different portions of the game. Now, you're not going to get to pick. It is random, so sometimes this might low roll a little bit for you. You kind of wish you had Wind Fury to create some monster threat, or Taunt to protect something, and you get something else. But ultimately, still a nice return here, a lot of value. And the ability to magnetize these to specific things in your build could offer a lot of extra bonuses as well. Like giving Reborn to some key unit could be pretty important, you might imagine. So yeah, this is really fun. Number one, just excited to see Mecha Jiraxis, excited for that classic 315 stat line for Jiraxis. That's really fun. And these dual type minions are pretty cool across the board, but I think this one's especially cool. So next up here we have the Fell Stomper, a new tier 6 demon and beast. It's a 3/7. And it reads, after you summon a minion in combat, give your minions +3 attack. So this is not a shop-based buff. This has to specifically be in combat, but anytime you summon some sort of token in combat, if that's like a death rattle, summoning an imp or a tiny beast, for instance, you're going to get a big old board-wide buff here for +3 attack, as long as your Fell Stomper is alive. And of course, if you're summoning lots of tokens, if you have ways to chain off multiple death rattles, you might get 5, 6, 7, 8 buffs in a fight if things go exceedingly well, which of course is going to make each of those tokens really threatening as well, because this is an after you summon effect. So you're going to be buffing those tokens along with whatever original minions you had laying around on top of that. So all in all, this is kind of a build your own OG Deathwing sort of effect, I guess, where you're just going to have these tokens whacking people really, really hard over and over again. If you summon 3 or 4 tokens at once, that final token could be a monster all in its own right with attack buffs, not to mention whatever other synergies you've got going off in your build as well, because you assume it's not just the Fell Stomper there. So this is intriguing. I don't know for sure how well this will continue to scale super late into a Battlegrounds run, but I could see this being something you tier into early, you triple into this early, and it just gives you this huge power dump for a few rounds at least, which, you know, that offers its own awesome advantages. If this just tempos you through a few different fights in the mid to early late game, that could be pretty crazy. So I just love the feel of these characters. It's so cool to see a demon dinosaur. Like, what? That's awesome. I don't even care if these are good. I think they just look really, really cool. So next up, we've got Greta Goldgun. She is a new tier 6 Naga and Pirate. A 2/9 in this case with Spellcraft Make a different friendly pirate or Naga golden until your next turn. So the gold gun there is your spellcraft, as you can see. Can't use it on Greta, but man, there are some other great targets. For instance, Hogger comes to mind. You need to turn that Hogger golden, get a Greta. You only need that one Hogger. You've got the golden Hogger, and you can go absolutely crazy on your pirates, probably finding more Hoggers so you don't even need Greta later. But just that opportunity to get that, even just one unit at a time, right? If you're keeping Greta around, you're getting this every single turn, which means you can build some absolutely key units. Even temporarily, they're still going to offer enormous upsides. You can't use it on everything, of course, like say the Reno hero power, but still, clearly there are going to be targets where that's rather valuable even without the freedom to target anything. So you might sometimes use it just for tempo, play it on some big buffing Naga thing and just try to make it really big for a turn to make sure you stay alive or get that carry unit. And then sometimes you'll use it more as that build defining aspect for something like a Hogger where you're just trying to pop off really crazy. But I think that's a pretty darn nifty little effect here, and I suspect it's going to have some surprisingly high utility. So moving on here to the Cyborg Drake, a new tier 5 2/8 mech and dragon with Divine Shield, and your Divine Shield minions have +10 attack. So it's actually a 12/8 right off the bat, which is just a monster stat dump with Divine Shield. Now, do keep in mind the way most people are interpreting this, it does indicate that if they lose Divine Shield, they're probably not going to keep the 10 attack. I know that's debatable because the Divine Shield minion could refer to the existence of the keyword, but most people are saying if they lose Divine Shield, they're going to lose the buff as well. So like the first hit is going to be a 12/8, but then this will probably just be a 2/8. And yes, this does affect itself based on the wording. It does not say your other Divine Shield minions, but clearly for the first round of hits here for the Cyborg Drake, this could be an instant crazy power dump on a Divine Shield board, right? Effectively, this could add 70 attack right off the bat, or 72 if you count its base attack, I guess, to your already established Divine Shield board, which I think that's going to be enormously important sometimes, and just really, really high tempo and swingy. Tripling into this as a tier 5 with a couple, even just 1 or 2 Divine Shields, it's going to make you really powerful, I bet. And of course, if you're putting this into a build with dragons or mechs, both of which utilize Divine Shields really well, and just keep scaling it up on top of everything else, that's going to be something you can keep around for a while. It might just feel like a freebie, like +10's not going to fall off so fast that you can't keep this around for quite a while. So yeah, Cyborg Drake sounds like it's going to be awesome to me. That looks like a monster swing sometimes, then probably, you know, it's not going to keep up forever as a +10, but you start tripling it, you got other things going, it's probably going to hang around for most of your fight, I suspect, until maybe the last couple rounds. You're really digging for some crazy buffs and stuff, or pivoting into more tech options late in a Battlegrounds game, but still looks really, really strong to me. So next up is Sin Runner Blanchi, another tier 5. This one's 4/4 and an undead beast. It's got Reborn, which we know already is awesome for all kinds of different undead synergies. If you caught yesterday's video, lots of Reborn stuff happening in the undead package, but it's also Reborn with full health and enchantments. That's, I think, particularly cool with beasts and things like leapfroggers, for instance. If you get this leapfrogged a bunch and then it's reborn with a bunch of leapfrogger enchantments, obviously that could create some pretty crazy chains and opportunities. Or any other, we've already seen, like, give this +3 attack a bunch, and then the reborn version is going to be reborn with +3 attack a bunch from all of those extra enchantments. So a handful of different ways for the reborn side of this to actually just be completely bonkers and huge and scary and play towards your synergies even better. So pretty cool minion. I kind of feel like this one might be a little bit better in beasts, but I'm sure it'll make sense in both. Moving on to the Magma Lock. I love this, dude. An elemental Murloc, like a lava Murloc. That's so cool. I love the look of these minions so much. Tier 4 1/1 elemental Murloc. At the end of your turn, gain +1/+1 repeat for each minion you played this turn. So anytime you're doing some crazy cycling through minions, this guy actually could just get really, really big. So of course in elementals, you've got sort of like refresh tricks where you're just trying to play a bunch of stuff, build up for Nomi, play a bunch of refreshing elemental dudes, getting those cheap refreshes. And, you know, playing a bunch of little tier 1 2/2 guys that sell off, and I can't remember their name. Celemental. Celemental, God, what an obvious name. I had to look that up. So, you know, just cycling through your Celementals, Magma Locks are going to get really, really, really big. We are losing Majordomo Executus, apparently, in the Elemental pool, so there's not, like, double synergies there necessarily, but nonetheless, Magma Lock could be pretty nifty. Also, could you just, like, throw this into a Pirate build, maybe? It's not necessarily any different than the Salty Looter, I guess, other than having distinct Pirate synergies, but kind of the same difference, right? And it even benefits off non-pirates, non-elementals, etc. So might be kind of a freer salty looter type dude, even in a pirate build. So maybe some utility outside of even elementals and murlocs, which sounds pretty cool bonus. Next up is the Puffer Quill, a tier 4 2/4 Quillbore and Naga that reads, after a spell is played on this, gain poisonous until your next turn, which of course very fitting. Quillbore, you've got your blood gems, so very, very cheap, easy way to give this poisonous, and that's instantly going to make it a super high value minion. And you got spellcraft on the Naga side as well, so some cheap throwaway spellcraft on here, and you've got yourself a monster poisonous minion again. That's awesome. And then you can even give this like divine shield with spellcraft too, so lots of ways to make this very, very powerful. I think getting a couple of these on board with some divine shields, that's gonna be build defining, perhaps all in its own, I suspect. So this card looks really, really good to me. It's such a mid-tier tier 4. It's not like it's super hard to get, and then a really powerful effect right off the bat on this that does not require much. It's, you know, it is limited, so you're gonna have to keep refreshing it every turn, which I guess that's a little bit of a pain, but probably not hard to do in either of these builds. So still seems really, really good. A little low maintenance or higher maintenance in some cards, but requires maintenance, but still the payoff seems absolutely worth it. So next up is the Felemental, a tier 3 3/1 elemental and demon. And finally, these elementals, demons always looked exactly like anyway. I think that traces itself all the way back to like the models from way back in the day in Warcraft games. But it has Battlecry minions and Bob's Tavern have +1/+1 for the rest of the game. So you play this, you get yourself a little tavern buff, which of course plays to both elementals and demons. Also have ways to buff stuff in the tavern. So this is just a little synergistic bonus to some of those other strategies that can absolutely be beneficial. I have worries sometimes of these like +1/+1 buffs. Is it really going to stack up fast enough? But there's so many ways to just start cycling through things that grabbing one of these here and there for a permanent long-term buff is probably still going to be worth it, especially if your strategy is already playing towards that. Demons, especially being able to convert that into immediate stats with stuff already on board via consuming minions in the shop. That seems like a really efficient way to use this. Elementals might feel a little bit more prohibited to play this, but if they're already in a refresh build in general anyway, perhaps it's still just kind of free to toss in, or not quite free, but very cheap, let's say, to toss in, which, yeah, maybe it is actually good in both scenarios. But I think demons might like this one even better, because sometimes I feel like when I'm playing demons, I get that board locked in, I got most of the stuff I want, and it's just about adding those little incremental gains, which a card like this might do nicely. Moving on here to the Corpse Refiner, a tier 2 2/3 undead pirate. It's got Avenge 4. This minion sells for 1 more gold. So theoretically, if you keep this back of your warband there and it gets an Avenge 4, maybe let's hope once per combat. Obviously, sometimes it'll get sniped off. It won't always connect. But let's say once per combat. I think this will stack up over time. That's the way I'm reading this. I don't think it's just per combat. So, you know, eventually after 3 or 4 combats, if you've been tanking this, you might be able to sell it for 3 or 4 additional gold, basically, making it a net gain in gold total, which, you know, is nice, I guess. You get a little, you know, body on board, a little tempo, and then you invest and you get some gold back later, which could certainly be pretty beneficial. But it does take a little investment in time, and it's certainly not the strongest tempo play either. So I wonder how many people will really be willing to risk it here for just like maybe 1 or 2 gold on average by the time you want to pivot out of this. Is that worth it for that extra 1 or 2? Might depend on the build, might depend on other options. Maybe something you just grab at the end of a shop because you don't have anything else going on and hope to make it free, basically, off of this Avenge. So next up is the Blazing Skyfin, a tier 2 1/3 Murloc and Dragon that reads, after you play Battlecry minion, gain +1/+1. And you know, for a tier 2, I actually think this is some pretty interesting scaling. It is true that it may be harder, certainly, to scale in the early game. Like, if you buy this early and you're hoping to get it big by the mid game, I don't know that that's going to happen all that reliably. Sometimes it can be hard to get good battle cries. But as something that you actually add into your build late, supporting a Calicos or some of those crazy like Bran, Murloc, pop-off type scenarios where you're playing lots of battle cries, this is just going to keep getting bigger and bigger. I mean, doubling every Calicos battle cry in particular. That sounds pretty nifty for the Skyfin. So this is one of those that, despite being lower tier, I wonder if it's actually better in the late game as opposed to the early game. It seems like it has some potential there to get big and kind of catch up and double its stats really, really quickly compared to all the other buffs it's already receiving, which could be important. And it's probably not going to be super hard to find either as a tier 2 unit. So then our final dual type minion here is the Thorn Captain, a tier 1 4/1 Quillboar and Pirate. After a card is added to your hand, gain +1 health until next turn. So blood gems give this a nice little buff every time they're added to hand, and pirates with any kind of like coin generation or just buying lots of pirates, of course, could also buff up the Thorn Captain. Ultimately, you know, it's just +1 health per. That's not gonna scale super well, I don't think. And without ways to bump up the attack, of course, this card's gonna fall off pretty fast. So just an absolute filler, I think, for, you know, early Quillboars and early pirates. Probably not something you're super pumped to play into much beyond the early game, but yeah, I mean, the 4 attack certainly gives you some good trades early on. So getting just a little bonus health here and there maybe gets you a value trade on this, and it trades up rather nicely, but I think we'll fall off really hard. So moving on, we also have some non-dual type minions, but kind of replacements or new minions. This is Titus Rivendare, which is not Baron Rivendare, notably, because Baron Rivendare is undead, and Titus Rivendare is not undead. So this is going to be replacing Baron. It's basically the same, except the wording change here is significant. This says your death rattles trigger an extra time, not that they trigger twice. So what that means is if you have 2 of these on board, you're actually going to get the Baron effect multiple times. Before, if you had 2, they would both say twice and it would still just do the death rattle twice. But now it's an extra time, so you're actually going to get 3 death rattles if you have 2 Titus Rivendares on board, and even if they are both goldened and they say 2 extra times, and apparently even 2 golden ones or 1 golden non-golden would also stack. There's already been some conversation on Twitter from the devs. So basically, stackability is added in here with this version of Rivendare, which you know, there's actually been scenarios where I've had 2 Rivendares on board just waiting to find that triple or something. So you could see that being a meaningful change for sure. I think it's pretty much just all upside on the card here. All right, so next here we have the Cinderai Straight Shot. It's tier 4/3/4. Wind Fury Divine Shield. Whenever this attacks, remove Reborn and Taunt from the target. So a little bit of a tech card here for your build to potentially solve some problems, getting around a big taunt. For instance, if you need to get through a taunt for some reason, the Cinderai Straight Shot would allow you to do that. Also, silencing off some Reborn aspects as well. Remember, these are combat debuffs, so these would not be permanent for your opponent. It's not like it's losing the taunt or Reborn forever. It's happening in combat. Although, I guess if you did hit a Tarek Gosa, I wonder if the Tarek Gosa would lose the debuffs permanently. Trying to think about the wording on Terracosta. Does it say enchantments are permanent? Which, I don't know. That to me feels like only positive enchantments would be permanent. This permanently keeps your enchantments from combat. Yeah, no, I don't even think this would permanently remove Terracosta enchantments, but that's an interesting thought. But anyway, cards like this are important to exist. Pretty accessible mid-tier tech card of sorts. So yeah, sure, I think this will be important sometimes for solving problems. General Drakasath is a new tier 4/2/8 dragon with battlecry. Add a 2/1 Smolderwing to your hand that gives another dragon +5 attack. So that's just a little 2/1 with +5 attack, which initially some people thought was going to be a buyable minion, but it's been confirmed that that is just a token. So you're just going to get that little buff there, which, you know, is a battle cry for any kind of dragon cycling stuff. We've already seen a couple things, of course. We got Calicos, but also we saw that new tier 2 thing that loves having battle cries played. So You can instantly buff up your Dracasath to make it a pretty meaningful minion as a 7/8, but then also those battle cries have additional benefits as well, of course. Playing minions is good. Also, you just get to sell that as well. So, you know, a little bit of a gold refund there as well on the Smolderwing. So all in all, pretty nifty kind of economy slash buff slash utility card all baked into one. We've also got Chronormu, a tier 4 4/4 dragon. Chromie's making a cute little snowman there. And it reads, while this is in Bob's Tavern, gain the stats of any minions sold. So that's pretty intriguing, right? Especially if you're cycling through battle cries like we talked about. But I mean, also, like, what if you're just pirates and you've built a big old hand of pirates and you just see a Chronormu in the shop? Can you just sell 8 pirates, 9, 10 pirates, and then buy the Chronormu, and it's just going to be like this insane holdover minion, even if you're not keeping it permanently, just buying it for a round to do something nuts? I could see some possibilities there like that as well, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of those in a pinch minions sometimes that a lot of people end up buying, even if they're not looking for dragons specifically, but just the option sometimes to make this big, whether you've had some kind of pop-off turn or you're just cycling a little bit. The Chronormu could be a surprising stopgap that's pretty darn useful. Oh, and here's that Smolderwing token, by the way, for that Dracasath. I didn't know this was hiding back here. But yeah, that wraps it up, guys, for all of the new Battlegrounds minions that got revealed today, lest I missed any. But man, some of these dual type ones look really, really cool. I'm actually pretty pumped to try all this stuff out. I don't think I'll be a Battlegrounds guy still yet, but I definitely want to see some of this stuff in action. Excited to try these dual type things. They seem to have both really good flavor, but also some neat build around potential. So share your thoughts on these cards as always. If I missed anything cool or some insights or some cool way to use these cards or some broken combo or something, of course, share those. I'm, again, just a casual Battlegrounds enjoyer. I'm not going to see all the lines here. So happy to have you guys chime in with some additional ideas and thoughts. So look forward to those comments. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, game on.
Step aside. Be purged!